everyone. I'm talking to Amrita Bradley today. She's a hobby farmer and beekeeper from central Gippsland, and she contacted me recently to talk to me about a passion that we share in, creating whole foods, growing our own food and producing our own food in a really sustainable way, in harmony with the plants and animals in our local area. So hi, Amrita.
Hi, Amy. How you doing?
Good. Yeah. So let's get into it. Tell us about, about the passion we share around sustainable living and whole foods and health.
Yeah. So this started for us about 2012. We were city kids, and we were just tired of being on the rat race. So you'd go to work, you'd come home tired, you'd end up eating just basically junk food. And then next thing you know, you're fat and you're unhealthy and your health is starting to decline. So we just basically upped and left for the country. Two city kids that had no friends, no family up here, no idea how to farm at all. I don't think I've even grown much more than a couple of carrots. So it was a pretty big adventure. And look, 7 years down the track, we've cleaned up our diet and our sleep and our lifestyles. And we're passionate about growing our own food and supporting bees. Bees is our big one at the moment. We have 6 hives, and we are really passionate about producing good local honey.
Yep. So tell us more about your honey production, specifically about the process of raw honey and why harvesting the raw honey is really important, and how that benefits the health properties of that.
Yeah, well, the most important thing is that we work with nature. So we often forget in our day-to-day lives the cycles of nature, and that is that we go to the supermarket and let's just say zucchinis aren't in season yet, the shelves are full of them. So where are these zucchinis coming from and how are they being grown? It's kind of like with honey. People go to me in the wintertime, they go, have you got more honey? And I'm like, no, the bees are hibernating. They don't produce honey in winter. They're just trying to survive. So, there is a time and a season for everything, and it's about working with that time and season. More specifically, when we have raw honey, it means that it hasn't been pasteurized. It hasn't been heat treated. And the way that we specifically do it is that we just strain the honey. Okay. So, when you take the honey out of the hives and you go through the process of decapping it and allowing the honey to escape, you'll also get with that, little bits of wax, little bits of, stick or bee or, whatever bit has sort of come through it. You don't want that part in your honey, but there is a lot of benefits that do come through that straining process. So you might get a little bit of propolis. You'll definitely get some pollen in that. You'll get a lot of good stuff. And with the local part of it, you want to try and buy honey that's from your local environment. So that means the bees have foraged from the flowers in your area, and that's what you're going to get from that. So we're looking at
why is local honey then important for your body, and what can that provide us with that honey from the supermarket shelf won't?
Absolutely. So we're looking at the antibacterial properties of honey. It's known to have wound healing effects. So, for example, in the fires that came through and the koalas that got burnt, there was a big call out for local raw honey to put on the burns of the koalas. That was a big one. There's a lot of antioxidants and anti-inflammatory properties of honey as well. So when I say anti-inflammatory, the big one is if you're a hay fever sufferer, we often suggest that, instead of going on all your pharmaceuticals, why don't you just grab some local honey from the market and have a teaspoon of that in your, just a teaspoon of that a day, or in your coffee or your tea instead of sugar, and see if that has a better effect than, having your Zyrtec. And I've suggested that to a few people and they've been amazed at the results. In the industrialization process, they often, because they're producing such large volumes, they'll often get honey from a lot of different places. I wouldn't even know where you get it from, and they put it into one big vat. So you don't know that you're getting your local pollens and things in it. Also, when they heat treat it, the properties will decline. It's also diluted as well as sort of cooked a little bit, so it lessens it. So it's not as good. It's not
okay. So the nutritional aspects of it are diluted in that process. And I've also heard that it, you know, particularly for the imported honey, that often there's things added to bulk that honey out. Would that be right?
Yeah, it can be. With our honey we tout as 100% pure honey. So basically, it comes out of the hive, it gets filtered just to get the nasties out of it, and it goes into the jar. So what you're getting is as natural as it can possibly be, or as close to as natural as it can possibly be. Nothing's added to it at all.
And so tell us about its natural state and what, you know, if somebody, say, bought your honey, what they're likely to expect from the jar sitting in their cupboard.
Yeah, so this sort of sounds back to one of my passions where, you know, we go to the supermarket and a carrot has to be perfect. You know, it has to be a particular length and a particular colour. So with honey, it's kind of a little bit like wine. It will change colour throughout the season depending on what pollen is available and what the environmental conditions are available for the bees to collect. So with our honey, it starts off a bit lighter at the beginning of the season. So, you know, in the early spring, and then by late summer, it's darker. And that's just because of what's available in the environment. The other thing too is that when you open up a jar of natural honey, you might see like a white foam on top of it, and then it might be little bits of wax or propolis or pollen. That's great stuff. Eat that stuff. It's not off. So this is a mistake that's often made. And crystallization is a big one. So honey is liquid. It does, however, turn into a crystal form, and that's perfectly natural. It's not off. So let me say that again. Crystallization does not mean your honey is off. It is perfectly good to eat. All it is when the water is separated from the glucose, that's when the crystallization process occurs. We don't know when it's going to occur. It just does naturally. It's not a big deal, guys. Eat the honey. You know, if you really want it to flow again, look, just get your jar, put it in some warm water. Yeah. Don't microwave it. Please don't microwave
it. Not reheat it, just warm it.
Yeah, don't reheat it. Yeah, yep. And certainly don't boil it, okay? So you just want to gently warm it in some warm water, and that will bring it back from crystallization back to that flowy honey that we all like to drizzle on our toast.
Yeah, because you know, all the lovely enzymes that are still in that honey, and that's the difference between more and processed honey, isn't it? That you've still got all those living enzymes and microbiomes and things, properties that make that honey alive, really, and that are so good for us. So you don't want to heat it to the point where you're killing off those things. And so then, is it true that honey never actually goes off?
No. Actually, this is really interesting. A little while back, and I can't tell you the source off the top of my head, but they opened up a pyramid and they found some honey in one of the chambers. So this honey would have been about 3,000 years old, and it wasn't off. It was perfectly fine. So I'm just saying, guys, honey never goes off. It's fantastic. It's how the bees actually manage to produce that. Just I'm in awe of the bees and what they can do. So honestly, they're such great animals.
Yeah.
So the last thing I just want to say on honey production is that look, there are laws around honey production and beekeeping, and we want to keep those. We want to keep the bees safe, and we certainly want to keep you safe. So you know, make sure you buy your honey from you know, someone who is following those rules. There's often a lot of backyard hobbyists who just sell off honey at really cheap prices, and you've got to sort of ask why. And so if they're not following the rules and regulations, they're going to be able to sell it cheaper than, say, for what I could sell it for, simply because I am paying the registration fees and making sure all the labelling's done correctly and that you're getting the best possible, you know, produce. I'm being audited. You know, I'm being, you know, I've constantly got to keep my education levels up to make sure I'm doing things right. So that does come at a cost, and that's why, you know, if you're paying, you might need to pay a few dollars more for your honey, but, you know, in saying that, it's about keeping you safe and it's about keeping the bees safe and making sure they don't get diseases, and that we can keep, you know, backyard apiarists running, because if it becomes legalised and over-regulated, your backyard honey producer is going to disappear. They're not going to be able to keep up with the cost of it, and everything's just going to become industrialised, and you're going to lose that as a resource for you.
Yeah, which would be devastating. And I think, you know, it's you guys who are taking care of those bee populations, which are so important for, you know, sustaining life and us growing food in general.
We do, and we love growing food, and we love having food in that natural state. So coming back to a post you did about a family pie, you know, that's what sort of started this conversation. Me wanting to have this conversation with you is because the pie looked natural. It looked like something your mum would make. You know, it looked fine, but then when you flipped it over and you had a look at all the ingredients, I was just absolutely gobsmacked. And so it comes back to, you know what, I just don't want people to stuff with my food. You know,
Yeah.
I want to give my body the nutrients and the love it deserves. And, you know, I go to great lengths and great expense to be able to do that. And I don't want to lose that, you know, and I don't want to be taken advantage of. I don't want to be fooled into thinking that something's natural when it's not. So that's sort of, you know, really prompted this conversation.
Yeah. Okay. So where could we find your beautiful, raw, local produce? Because I know a lot of people watching this will be local to our Gippsland area. So where, a little bit of a plug, where can you actually get your honey from?
Yeah, so we're located in Denison. You can buy it directly from us, but you can also buy it the Pickle Pot in Maffra, the Nutrition Pod in Sale, and also the Hunting Ground in Sale. So, you know, plug out to those guys, because those guys really are supporting local producers.
Absolutely.
They are doing their best to bring in our stock as opposed to, you know, things from outside of the area.
Yep.
Yeah, so from those
Very
places.
good. And you've also got a website since
yeah, we have a Facebook page, so Winsong Farm Providore, and there's a little shop there where you can buy our local stuff. But, you know, just not only honey, but, you know, we do stuff with the beeswax too. So if you're looking for, like, you know, a lip balm or a hand moisturizer, that is natural. And, you know, supporting local, working with the environment and seasons, you know, you can get some of that stuff as well.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your passion about food and about bees. I've certainly learned a few things from chatting to you off camera and on today about local raw honey. And I'll definitely be keen to try your honey. So.